Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back into another edition of Keytime Sports right here on YouTube. Please like, comment, share, subscribe to Keytime Sports right here on YouTube, Key City Sports on Instagram, and the keyonmillions.co. Here is my profile, my media feed, and my merchandise. We are going to be rolling out new merchandise at the end of this week. Here is our previous merchandise that we have rolled out. You can go on millions.co, create an account, and you can buy merchandise on there. And you can also follow more sports creators on there too. So the topic at hand today is we got quite a few basketball series that are 3-1, and I'm going to tell you all in this show, 3-1, a 3-1 deficit doesn't hold the same way as it did back in the day. But the first series matchup I want to talk about is the Cavaliers and the Toronto Raptors. Now, the Cavaliers and Toronto Raptors, I said this right after the game yesterday. The player that we have got to focus on is James Harden. James Harden yesterday. He was 6 of 14. He only had 19 points. Donovan Mitchell, he had a bad game. He was 6 of 24, 4 of 12 from the three-point line. But the Cavaliers, in the midst of all of that, they still had a chance to win. And as you all can see, bench production, you had Sam Morrell who was he made some contributions, but the Cavaliers, they should have won this game. And there are a few, and I do mean a few plays down the stretch where I just didn't agree with what they were doing as far as from a coach's perspective, a schematic perspective, and a time consuming perspective. Well, excuse me, not time consuming, but time management perspective. Now, once we look at the Toronto Raptors, we see that almost everybody, the starting four, had a good game. You had Brandon Ingram with 23, R.J. Barrett with 18, Scotty Barnes with 23, Jacob Pelote with 10, and Jacoby Walter, he had 27 minutes and scored a big old goose egg. Toronto Raptors bench production, Colin Murray-Boyles had 15 points. Now, one thing that I can say is the Toronto Raptors, nobody is giving them a puncher's chance to get past the second round. That's if they get after they get to this round, if they beat the Cavaliers. But now it is 2-2, and there's one thing when it comes to Game 5, the winner of Game 5 always wins the series 85. Well, I can't say always wins, but wins the series 85% of the time. So Game 5 is significant for one of these teams because one team is going to be in the driver's seat and is going to push that team to the brink of elimination. Now we get to team statistics, and the team statistics from the three-point line, when it comes to the Cavaliers, they were 10 of 40, 25%. You're not gonna get anywhere with you just shooting 25% from the three-point line. Free throws, 65%. Another thing that the Cavaliers were struggling yesterday with. Then we look at the Raptors. Raptors, when it comes to their three-point shooting, they only had 13%. 4 of 30, and some way, somehow, you end up winning a game. And I'm not just, and let alone a playoff game. You don't hear that at all. You don't hear it at all. Now, one thing about offensive rebounds, the advantage was the Raptors, and defensive rebounds, the advantage was the Cleveland Cavaliers. As we all can see, total turnovers, the Cavaliers, they turned the ball over 18 times. The Raptors turned the ball over 12 times. Fast break points, it really wasn't many fast break points. That's why the score is so low. it was 18-12. Well, excuse me. Total turnovers, that was 18-12. Fast break points was 15-10. Points in the paint, 50-38 in favor of the Raptors. And largest lead of the game was 9 for the Cavaliers, and largest lead was 6 for the Raptors. But there's one thing that just doesn't sit right with me. The last 2 minutes of the game, when it comes to as far as the Cavalier way of things, Cavaliers, they should have won this game. And I'm just gonna give y'all a list of plays that I saw. Now, the one play that really got to me was when James Harden he took a step back with under a minute and a half left, and the Cavaliers were up by 4. Now, in some of these clips that I'm gonna show you, that's exactly what happened. And I'm gonna just go right to the fourth quarter, because that's pretty much where this game hinged on. The last 2 minutes of the fourth quarter, as you all can see right here. Now, the Cavaliers, they didn't get the rebound. But you gave up a rebound, and you let Toronto hit a 3. Now look at this. Now that was good, but there was another play that James Harden did. Now this is just downright bad defense right there. Now on this play, under a minute left, you see right there, under a minute left, and Donovan Mitchell has the ball. Yeah, he gets it across mid. He doesn't get it across midcourt. 8-second violation. And this is where the Cavaliers started to unravel. They started to unravel, and by the time, see, look at this. No defending at all from the Cavaliers. And as you all can see, they couldn't get nothing. You missed the shot at the basket, and it was just down the stretch. The last 2.5 minutes of the game, the Cavaliers, they only had 2 points. 2 points to show. And now the last play, this play, I'm going to just slow it all the way down. Now, Cavaliers, you have one timeout. If you get all the way to the basket, you're only down by 1, and then you play the foul game. But did the Cavaliers do that? No. Here's Donovan Mitchell. He tries to go shoot a contested 3, and it did not. That didn't even have a chance of going in. And as you all can see, they ended up losing the ball, and they ended up losing the game. And we have got to take into question, how good are the Cavaliers in late game situations? Because for the first 2 games of the series, it was pretty much they had efficient 3-point shooting. The largest lead in both games 1 and 2 were 15 points in favor of Cleveland. Now, Cleveland is in adversity. You've lost both games in Toronto. You're going back home, and you play the Toronto Raptors tomorrow. Well, excuse me, Wednesday. Wednesday night, you play the Raptors Wednesday night in Cleveland, and then Game 6 is back in Toronto. But I do believe that this series is going to go to a Game 7. At first, I thought it was just going to be 5 games, but now it's going to the limit. But there is one thing when it comes to the Cavaliers. If the Cavaliers somehow lose this series, and this will be the 3rd time that the Cavaliers have lost a series in the past 3 years before the Eastern Conference Finals. Now, we put the Cavaliers as one of those teams that could be a champion, a NBA Finals contender, but I don't see the Cavaliers as a championship contender because I believe that Boston, somehow I still believe in the New York Knicks. They have better teams than the Cavaliers. They do. They have better teams than the Cavaliers. So when it comes to the Cavaliers, they have things that they have to work on immediately. Like late game situations. When you have the lead, don't be dependent on step back jump shots. Go to the basket, attack the basket, get fouled, and slow the game down. See, this is the problem with some teams. When they have a lead, they try and play the clock and then try and wait until the last 5 to 10 seconds to get a shot. But if you play with the clock like you need to, you will be able to get a high percentage efficiency shot. But the Cavaliers didn't do that because we all know that James Harden, in the last few minutes of the game throughout his career, those jump shots, he's made those jump shots. But in that situation with the Raptors, it's already a close game. You have got to find some way to attack the basket and get fouled. Because, see, in those situations, if I can't get the 2 points off of a jump shot, I'm going to the line. I'm getting fouled and going to the line. I'm gonna get the 2 points some way, somehow, whether it's through a foul or a jump shot. That is what I see when it comes to the Cavaliers and the Raptors. And one thing I can say, if the Raptors upset the Cavaliers, then going into next season, the Raptors playoff contenders. The Raptors, they were not supposed to be playoff contenders coming into this season. They wasn't. So Raptors, they are surprising everybody who has watched them in attendance. They are surprising everybody. But now, the next game I'm going to cover is the San Antonio Spurs and Portland Trail Blazers. Now, the San Antonio Spurs, they lead 3-1. Victor Wembanyama, he came back. I am happy that he is back. Not totally 100%, but to see him back on the floor, I was just happy to see him back on the floor. You had Julian Champagne with 8, Victor Wembanyama 27, De'Aaron Fox 28, Devin Vassell 11 points, Stephon Castle 16 points, and then the Spurs, they emptied out their bench, and most of the players they scored, you have 3 players that didn't score at all. They were just out there just to be out there. But here's one thing: when it comes to this game, this was pretty much a roller coaster of a game, and I could pretty much say that because Trailblazers, they came out yesterday, game 4. First half, they were efficient. They shot 70% from the floor, if I'm not mistaken. 70% from the floor, and the Trailblazers were up by 17 at one point in the first half. And I'm looking at the game, and I'm saying, okay, I'm like, the Spurs, I am like, okay, this is the first half. I'm like, let's see how things fare in the second half, because Trailblazers, anything that they wanted in the first half, they got. Free throws, 3-point shots, everything was going for them. You even had Denny Avita. He scored 8 points in the first quarter, 8 of his 26 in the first quarter. So Then you had Drew Holiday, who is a defensive specialist. He had 20, and then on the bench side of things, Jeremy Grant, he had 17. But here's the one thing where the Trailblazers, when the game started to turn, when you insert Victor Wembanyama, and Victor Wembanyama, he had a couple of blocks this game, quite a few blocks, I might add. He had 7 blocks in this game. I am going to tell you all that Victor Wembanyama, he is a significant domino to the Spurs' criteria when it comes to being able to scheme against opponents. Now, for Victor Wembanyama to have 7 blocks in a game in the playoffs, that is pretty much that's elite defense, because we all know that Victor Wembanyama can stay with anybody on the floor. But I know there are some times where Victor Wembanyama, the opponent thinks that they have Wemby beat, and then Wemby, he just comes out of nowhere and just blocks their shot, and that's exactly what he did. See, the Trailblazers in the third and fourth quarter, they couldn't get nothing going, as you all can see. Third quarter, Trailblazers scored 16 points. Fourth quarter, Trailblazers scored 19 points. Now, once we get to team statistics and we get into three-point shooting and free throws, even though Trailblazers made more free throws than the Spurs still had this game. And I wasn't concerned in the first quarter. I wasn't, because I said, okay, this is the Trailblazers. They're at home. This is game 4. But I had said at the end of the game, I'm like, Spurs is going to win. Largest lead of this game for the Spurs was 21, and largest lead for the Trailblazers was 19. But that 19-point lead was in the first half. And as you all can see, when it comes to these clips, the Spurs, they were up. They were up in the first quarter, but then all of a sudden the Trailblazers, they went on a run. And as you get to the second quarter, as you get right here, late second quarter, the Trailblazers are up by 15. Denny Avita, he was balling out of control. Then you have Jeremy Grant with 3 of his 17 points. And it just seems like the Spurs were going uphill around this point of the game. That's what it seemed like. But we get to the late third quarter, early fourth, and into the late fourth quarter, where the Spurs, they pretty much put the clamps down on the Trailblazers, and they pretty much took control of the series. They were up by 19 after De'Aaron Fox makes this 3. And this is what I said was going to happen when it comes to, because we already knew that the Trailblazers, they weren't as strong, because the Trailblazers, they got into the playoffs, and it needed a couple of play-in tournament games. Now, we look and we see where this was a total mismatch on paper. I'm actually surprised that the Trailblazers actually got a win. But as we all can see, the Spurs, they lead 3-1. And I'm going to tell y'all something. 3-1 is probably the most infamous series deficit that we can hear about right now, because 3-1 does not hold the same weight as it did back in the day, America. Whether it's baseball or basketball, it doesn't hold the same weight. I'm going to show y'all a couple of historical stats, because there have been 12 teams in NBA history to come back from a 3-1 deficit and win the series. The first was the 1968 Celtics. They won the series versus the 76ers 4-3 and recovered from a 3-1 deficit. The 1970 Lakers is the second team on the list. They played against the Suns, down 3-1, and won the series 4-3. 1979 Washington Bullets. Before they changed their name to the Wizards, they were the Bullets. They won the series after being down 3-1. 1981 Celtics, 1995 Rockets, 1997 Miami Heat, 2003 Pistons, 2006 Suns, 2015 Rockets, 2016 Warriors, 2016 Cavaliers, 2020 Nuggets, and the 2020 Nuggets. They did it twice in the same playoff round. Well, excuse me, in two different playoff rounds. So 3-1, it does not hold the same weight as it once did. But these are the Spurs that we are talking about, and I believe that the Spurs are going to handle business in that next game, and that next game is tomorrow night. The Spurs are going to win Game 5. I don't think that they are going to let the series go back to Portland. I just don't. So the next team that I am going to cover, still another 3-1 deficit, is the Boston Celtics and the Philadelphia 76ers. Boston Celtics, well, Joel Embiid, he came back, so like as I predicted after Game 3, he would come back before the series started, but he really didn't have significant minutes. He only had 26 points in 34 minutes. But the 76ers coming into this season, what did we really expect from them? We didn't expect anything. And I know that that 76er fans are going to look at this and say that 76ers, they had a puncher's chance. Okay, yeah, they had a puncher's chance. They made it to the playoffs, but outside of a first round exit, I didn't see anything else. And that's exactly what is about to happen. Now, when it comes to the Celtics, Jason Tatum, he's nowhere near 100%, but hey, he's still averaging 28 points a game, including the playoffs. Jaylen Brown, 20 points a game. And Peyton Pritchard, I don't know why Peyton Pritchard is not the sixth man of the year. I don't know why, but he had a great game. He was 6 of 12 from the three-point line. He had 32 points in 35 minutes. Peyton Pritchard is the glue guy when it comes to bench production. He is the one guy that can come off the bench and you know that he is going to score 15 to 20 points. If he get anything past 20 points, Pritchard, if he scores anything past 20 points, that is a huge, significant plus for the 76ers. That future outlook when it comes to the Philadelphia 76ers. You got Tyrese Maxey, you got BJ Edgecombe, you got Kelly Oubre. Joel Embiid, he's been there for 10 years. Next season will be his 11th. And for 65% of Joel Embiid's career, he's been fighting injuries. He hasn't played a full season healthy, ever. So you're going into another season. If you are the 76ers organization, you are going into another season with that on your mind, stating the fact that how many games will Joel Embiid play this season, and is he going to be ready for the playoffs. That's if the 76ers get to the playoffs next season. But this season for the 76ers, it's pretty much done after tomorrow night. Yeah, pretty much done after tomorrow night because game 5 is Tuesday. And 76ers, is Nick Nurse going to get fired? Who knows? But I did have him on my hot seat earlier this month. So I would not be surprised if Nick Nurse is fired. The last game that I am going to cover is the Los Angeles Lakers and the Houston Rockets. This is why the theme song Lakers in 5, this is why it reigns supreme, because we all know that the Lakers, they have one game. They'll have one game of miscues. But we can say that the Lakers, all throughout this series, they have had multiple games of miscues. Because when you go back to the first game, first game, the Lakers, they got lucky because they had 18 turnovers in the first game. Second game, they had 21 turnovers. Third game, they had 24 turnovers. Last night, the Lakers, they had 24 turnovers. See, now those are the type of numbers. Now, if we really want to be fair about this, the Lakers should be down 3-1. But we all know that when it comes to injuries, when it comes to the Rockets, and blown leads when it comes to the Rockets, that is the reason why the Lakers are 3. That's the reason why the Lakers didn't sweep last night. And even when it comes to 3-point shooting, 5 of 22, we all know that that's not going to cut it. We all know that, and plus, almost every Laker who played significant minutes last night had foul trouble. DeAndre Ayton, Jackson Hayes. Then you had Marcus Smart with 3 fouls. So everybody had significant foul trouble. Even LeBron, he had 3 fouls. So I just think that the Lakers would rather close out the series at home. Now, like I said, we all know that the Lakers were coming to win it last night, but I am not surprised that the Rockets did what they did last night, because we all know when it comes to the last game of a series, that closeout game is the toughest, because we all know that the referees, they are going to call the game tight, and they are going to make calls that are going to benefit the home team. They just are. That's how referees in the NBA, NFL, MLB, whatever league that you are watching, that is how the referees are. But once we get to those turnovers, when it comes to the Lakers, they had 8 turnovers in the first half. You're already putting yourself behind the 8 ball when it comes to you having 8 turnovers in the first half. Now, the Rockets, we all know that the Rockets last night, they didn't light up the scoreboard at all. They didn't. Largest lead for the Rockets was 28, and the largest lead for the Lakers were 5. But I was looking at the press conference last night, and there was a reporter that asked LeBron, should the Lakers still be comfortable? And what LeBron said was, how can we be comfortable? We haven't won the series yet. There's no such thing when you are playing in a playoff series. He said there is no such thing as comfortability. He said it's the first to 4, not first to 3. Now, for people who don't realize that back in the day, NBA, I would say back in the 80s and 90s, it was the best of 5. So it was the first to 3. But now since they integrated a new playoff format back in 99, where the first round series, it's a game 7. Game 7, so it's the first to 4, not the first to 3. But all in all, I think that the Lakers, they play Wednesday night. The Rockets and Lakers, they play Wednesday night. And I just think that if the Lakers don't win game 5, then obviously game 7 is going to happen. Because one thing that I can say is the Rockets, I can see the Rockets winning game 6 at home. Now, game 7, who knows? Possibly, I already know that Kevin Durant, he is not playing. But we all know that anything is lying to happen in a game 7. So if I'm the Lakers, I'm trying to close the game out Wednesday night. Get a few days of rest, get a few days of rest before the Lakers play the Oklahoma City Thunder, because we all know that the Oklahoma City Thunder, they will start playing game 4 tonight. Yeah, game 4 is tonight, and in 12 hours exactly, 9:30 p.m. And the Thunder will be waiting on the Lakers, and we all know that can Luka and Austin Reeves come back in time for the Lakers Thunder series? Possibly, but the Lakers, they got to end the series on Wednesday night. Now, I know today I know that the Lakers, they're probably going to do shoot around. They're probably going to have a film meeting, and they're probably going to go over some schematics for game 5. Or they may have today as a rest day, then tomorrow they do shoot around, and then tomorrow shoot around, walk through, and then when it comes to game day, they're just going to go right to the game. And for people who don't know what a walkthrough is, it's pretty much, a practice and, just putting things and tallying information up before the day of the game. That's what a walkthrough is. That's basically what a walkthrough is. Nothing too deep, nothing too deep to where you have to really think about it. But that's what a walkthrough is. And with that, those are my reactions to yesterday's Game 4 reactions with the Cleveland Cavaliers, Toronto Raptors, the Los Angeles Lakers, Houston Rockets, San Antonio Spurs, Portland Trail Blazers, and the Boston Celtics and Philadelphia 76ers. Please like, comment, share, subscribe to Keytime Sports right here on YouTube, Key City Sports on Instagram, and the key on millions.co. Here is my merchandise. You create you an account on millions.co, and you can start buying my merchandise as of today. And here is my media feed. And here is my profile, the key. And one last thing, America, world, remember, the key is always on time.